I'll try and find it.
Okay, thank you.
Yo. Yo, bro.
Sure. Well, I'll just. All right. So this is a meeting of the Department of Public Works Committee. My name is Michael Green. I'm Counselor at Large. I'm joined by 1st District Counselor Joseph Carney, 5th District Counselor Joseph Driscoll, Counselor at Large Steve Thompson, Counselor at Large Timothy Rudd, 4th District Counselor Latoya Allen, Council President Helen Hudson, and 2nd District Counselor Susan Boyle. Third, sorry. So why don't we have you guys introduce yourselves and go from there.
Good afternoon. Oh, my goodness. Good afternoon, Council. I'm Sharon Owens, Deputy Mayor of the City of Syracuse, East Side resident, for clarity. I'd like to introduce the team today. It's Christy Elliott, our Director of Administration, Jesse Scott, and Joe Rendy of the New York State Power Authority. We're going to be talking today about our proposal for acquiring streetlights for the city of Syracuse. This is a huge opportunity for our city. In maintaining and taking control of our streetlights, we introduced Syracuse the opportunity to be a leading smart city in the state of New York. I am absolutely thrilled with the possibility of Syracuse taking a lead on next generation technology across the state and into this country. It also presents an opportunity for something that has been a hindrance for too many of our residents and our community members, and that is stopping the digital divide in our community. It is a big investment, but worth the opportunity that opens up for this community to control its destiny. The details of where we're looking to go with this is going to be outlined by the team. I am encouraged by this. It is probably one of the biggest things that we're looking to do for our community, to be proactive in creating an environment that we control our destiny, not only for our ability to maintain control and generate revenue, but to also create opportunity for access across our city, as well as look at safety options and municipal control. I thank you so much for taking this opportunity and our team.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll just say a few words to kick us off. I do want to acknowledge that this has been a project in the making for many years. I know many of you have been involved in these conversations for a period of years, as well as some folks who are in the audience with us today. 3 administrations in a row have wanted to buy the streetlight system, but we are truly presented with a unique, once-in-a-generation opportunity to do this, given special pricing from a rate case, low interest rate environment, our bond capacity, support from the state, and the advancements in technology that exist right now. The technology that also creates an enormous cost savings for us is this transition to LED. So I do want to comment that the streetlights, they account for over half of Syracuse's utility bill on an annual basis. LED fixtures are going to reduce our street lighting energy consumption by 50 to 65%, which the savings from greenhouse gases will be an estimated 6,100 tons annually, which is not insignificant. The energy cost savings from this would range from approximately $1 to $1.2 million annually. From an overall savings standpoint, we estimate that we'll save about $3 million per year, meaning that through the life of this investment from the city, we will remain cash flow positive. And we estimate the return on this investment will be about $20 million over 20 years. On top of that, as the deputy mayor mentioned, there's incredible opportunity for us to control our own destiny, to take advantage of technology advances, and to partner with NYPA. We'll turn it over to them here in a moment, but they've brought some great partnership to this that will allow us to be a leader in smart city technology, both in the state and in many ways across the country. I truly believe that other cities will be calling us up after this to figure out how they do this same investment in their own communities. So with that, I'll turn it over to these guys to jump into the presentation.
Thank you, Christy. Good morning, Council. My name is Jesse Scott. I'm Manager of Customer Business Development at the New York Power Authority. I'm also the Program Manager for the 5 Cities program, a program that has established a long-standing partnership between the Power Authority and the City of Syracuse. So I'm going to talk about this project that has 3 pillars, and we're going to go over the 3 pillars this morning. But what this project is going to do, it's going to make the city of Syracuse the smart city leader, and as Christy mentioned, the city that the rest of the state and the country looks to as a case study on what to do in terms of smart city technology. So I have a PowerPoint presentation I've included in the folders in front of you, and we can follow along with the monitor and projector as well. Okay. So the 3 pillars of the project are the purchase and conversion of the street lighting system, smart city deployment, and connectivity. The first pillar, the purchase of the system, and these are the benefits for the city. They enable you to have control of your system. You choose what color temperature, what beam angle, the wattage, the light output that your system has across the city. If there are areas that you feel need more light, we'll include that. If there's less light needed and more energy savings needed, we would incorporate that into the control of the system. And by purchasing, you have control not only to change the lights to LED, but also incorporate all these revenue generating opportunities like smart city technology. This project is at its core an energy efficiency project. Between maintenance savings and energy savings, this is about a $3 million plus, conservatively $3 million energy savings and cost savings through maintenance to the city every year. There is a significant greenhouse gas reduction of 6,100 tons of greenhouse gases reduced annually through this project. So not only is Syracuse becoming a smart city, we are also becoming a green city as well. Improved light quality. The quality of light post LED retrofit and conversion is dramatic, and we've seen it in other projects that we worked on. Every day I drive over the Tappan Zee Bridge, and you can see the old lights compared to the new lights, and it is a tremendous improvement in light quality, which also leads to reduction in crime, reduction in traffic accidents, and there are a lot of other benefits that come along with improved light quality. And then this system is the real estate or the backbone for smart cities, networks, and applications. So once you take ownership of the lights, you can use this as the backbone to add on all kinds of other functions that we're going to talk about today. The second phase is the deployment of the smart cities nodes and sensors across the city. There are some other cities that have installed these types of sensors and nodes in small pockets through testing and sampling. This will be the largest smart city installation, definitely in New York State, in the Northeast, and quite possibly across the country. And this is not piloting and testing. We're deploying and installing these sensors and determining where they're going to be located in close coordination with the City Council and the administration. And through these smart city nodes, we'll be able to improve the efficiency and the operations of city government for your residents and for businesses. And then the third pillar is the most exciting, and this is more of a long-term plan, but we're getting started right away, is connectivity, meaning that we're deploying 4G, 5G, and Wi-Fi to areas and bridging that digital divide that the deputy mayor talked about. We understand that there are areas in the city where people have to go on their porches to make cell phone calls, and we're going to try to fix that. And this is 2018, and we need to make sure that there is ample broadband coverage across the whole city, and that also can yield revenue generation through subscriptions, through advertising, through permitting of real estate as well. So we'll get into that in more detail, but those are the 3 pillars you're going to hear me refer back to during the presentation. And this is how the Power Authority can help through our Energy Services division. First, the design of the project. By interviewing city staff, looking at crime statistics, interviewing residents of the community, will create an adequate design that fits the personality and the conditions of the city. Meaning more light in certain areas, less light in other areas where it's not needed. Looking at color temperatures and talking to the residents about what they're comfortable with. Getting out there and really engaging the community to make sure they're part of that decision-making process. There is an engineer of record on this project. There will be a full design to make sure that liability is covered during the project, and that design will be the basis of ordering materials and implementation. We will provide construction management for the project, ongoing commissioning for the project. We will procure incentives. There are National Grid incentives available for this project that we will apply for on your behalf. We will warranty the project, and then this is the first key component about smart cities technology. Every single streetlight in the city will be connected via a SIM card and work off of cellular tower service, and will be connected and provide instant notification if a light goes out. So this is a proactive asset management approach. The way it currently works is if a resident, or business owner, or or a law enforcement officer sees a little light is out, they will either call maybe a council member, maybe call National Grid, and then it goes into the queue for repair. Through the new system, you'll be notified immediately that a light goes out. It'll tell you the wattage and the color temperature and the model number of that fixture that went out. You can go to the DPW garage, grab that fixture, and immediately deploy to go change that light out. So no more waiting for calls and waiting long periods of time to replace the lights. Controllability also means you have flexibility to use the system for dimming, for energy efficiency purposes. For snow emergency notifications, you can flash the lights if there's a parking restriction. So there's a variety of different functionalities that we can get into the details with about what you can use the Smart Cities platform for. The second pillar is Smart Cities deployment. The Power Authority is providing a $500,000 grant to the city to procure and install hardware and software for a variety of different functionalities that improve the operations for weather, public safety, transportation, and a variety of other issues, and I'll get into the details of the functionality of that as well. And then also installing sensor-ready fixtures that can do things like put snow detection and ice detection right on the infrastructure that the city owns now, so you can maintain your not only your street lighting system, but your roadways more efficiently as well. And then the third pillar is connectivity. This is where, through a partnership between the city, the Power Authority, and private investment partners that NYPA has, and through other external business investment, we are going to make Syracuse a connected smart city through 4G, 5G, and Wi-Fi. And this is going to be on the cutting edge. And this is again something that other cities are in the demo pilot stage with, and this is something we want proof of concept and deployment for citywide, and that's part of the analysis that we're doing and the plan that we're going to create in partnership with the city. So to touch on the partnership between the Power Authority and the city of Syracuse, I also work as a function of my job as a program manager for the 5 Cities program. The city of Syracuse, in partnership with NYPA, as I mentioned before, created the City Energy Plan in 2015. And that was a roadmap for the city of Syracuse to achieve a 20% reduction in their energy consumption by 2020. The Power Authority has provided about $1.3 million in grants to do a lot of the great projects listed here today. We've installed over 12,000 LEDs across the city already. And through those projects, we're generating annually $500,000 in energy savings through the projects that we've implemented and collaborated on over the past 3 to 4 years. We also have ongoing projects that are just kicking off right now throughout the city. So while this is a new project and initiative, the relationship between the city and the Power Authority is longstanding and established. The Power Authority also provides support in staffing to the city by means of an energy manager to help implement the city energy plan. And we also have several of the city-owned buildings connected to our New York Energy Manager Central Energy Monitoring Hub, where the Power Authority and the city can monitor energy use in those major municipal buildings. So those are just some of the things that have happened over the last few years between the city and the Power Authority. So next slide touches on some of our experience. Now, LED street lighting conversions is not something new to the Power Authority, but the smart cities deployment is something brand new. So we're somewhat experts at LED conversions. We've been doing a lot of them statewide. We have currently over 200 projects at various levels of development with over 300,000 fixtures. Over 17,000 of those fixtures are right here in the city of Syracuse. But here's an example of projects that we're in various stages of across the city, across the state. And for all of these projects, we are hiring local contractors and electricians to do the work. There is a regional economic development benefit to this project where we will work closely with the city administration and city council to identify qualified contractors that will install these fixtures. There's 17,000 lights. There's a lot of work out there. There's an economic development for labor, and we're going to make sure that we adhere to not only our own, but the city's minority owned and women-owned businesses as well, to make sure that this is an inclusive project for all. Okay, next slide.
I'm sorry, did you know offhand, and I apologize, how many fixtures we actually have in comparison to the other cities?
Yep, the city of Syracuse has approximately 17,500 different lights, and that's a combination of wooden poles, metal poles, and decorative lights.
So, and I apologize for
Yeah.
interrupting, but I got questions and I like to
It's okay.
The largest one obviously is Buffalo. It says, I skipped ahead and read a little bit further, I apologize, but it looks like the actual construction period says it's gonna take 6 months. Is that for the entire 17,000?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
and,
correct.
And that's about, based on what you've done with other cities that are in similar state. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously Albany and Rochester have fewer, but somewhere in between. Sorry. You know, in between the two, that's ballpark what you think it's going to be based on projects.
Yep.
Okay.
So when we do the bidding, we're going to look at the responses from the labor contractors, and if we need to award to multiple contractors to meet that timeline, we want to do so. Construction period is always best during warmer months, so we want to start right as soon as the spring starts and continue throughout the end of the summer. But the speed of the installation is going to depend on the number of crews out there. We would expect for a project like this to have at least 10 crews working that can do 10 crews of 2 that can do approximately 20 fixtures a day.
And the construction is going to include everything, LED, the SIM cards that you mentioned, all the sensors, everything that was included. That's going to be soup to nuts. Everything's going to be done in that 6-month period with all of the lights, hopefully.
For the first 2 pillars, all of that will be done during that 6-month period. For the third pillar of connectivity, that's going to be an ongoing project. So as new technologies comes out, like for example, the 4G poles are due to come out this fall, but 5G we don't expect till 2020. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a more long-term project. But the LED conversion and the installation of fuses, and then also the smart cities nodes will all be installed and included through this project.
Okay. And is that included? I mean, is the 4G and 5G, is that included in that 38 million that we're budgeting for?
It won't be an additional cost.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so this is a break page, but we're going to focus on the first pillar, which is the LED street lighting and conversion. And this is the scope of work for the conversion. There's approximately 17,507 fixtures. The system that we've been using is called City Touch. It's a Philips system. The City of Rochester 3 weeks ago purchased 9,000 of these control nodes. The City of Mount Vernon has 4,000 of these nodes. The City of Albany is testing them. So it's an established system that is out there in the marketplace. It's tested, and it comes with a 10-year service license. So there's no reoccurring subscription cost. It's all included in the hardware cost of the system. But this will give you, again, metering information, full controllability of the system, real-time notifications, where the calls for outages should reduce dramatically. And then this can also integrate into a work order flow system where you can create work orders out of this system. And then you can also dim it as well. And then through our system, the commissioning I want to talk about on the next slide. But that's the ongoing maintenance of, tweaking things as you go. But the overarching theme for this slide is you're going to have better service. Your residents are going to receive better service at a lower cost, and this is a proactive approach to managing this system that is now an asset.
Now,
Counselor, do you mind if we just go all the way through and then just do all the questions at the end? Is that all right?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So next slide is talking about materials, and as I mentioned before, we have over 300,000 fixtures in our pipeline, which gives the program and NYPA buying power. So you're leveraging this buying power. The fixtures that we'll be using on this project today are under $80, whereas 3 years ago they were over $300. So the pricing in fixtures and materials has dropped dramatically, which lowers the upfront cost to the city and also increases the payback and the simple return of the project as well. And that applies to not just the roadway lighting, but the decorative lighting as well, and the control nodes. Okay. Next slide. So community engagement, and this ties back to the 5 Cities program. where the city's leading by example. The city is implementing measures that are making the city smarter and more efficient. So we're going to use this as a learning opportunity to work with the city council in their respective districts and hold public outreach and educational workshops so the residents of the community can understand, why there are bucket trucks out in their neighborhood, the benefits to the city, and how they can also make similar improvements in their own home. So we want to lead by example as one of the core principles of the 5 Cities program, and be out there and educate people up front and get in front of it. Let them know what's happening, how there will be improved light quality, how the city's saving money, and all the other benefits of the project. So when you do a project like this, very visible. It's not like changing a boiler in a basement of City Hall. It's very public, and it impacts the whole city. 99% of people will be very happy with the installation. There might be some people that are used to the old system and have prefer a different color, prefer a different lumen output or a beam angle, and that's part of the commissioning of the project. So once we're done installing 17,000 lights, we're going to commission and we can tweak certain things by changing the colors, adding shielding, making sure we're addressing all of the public concerns, and that is a bit of an ongoing process after the August target completion date for the installation of the project. You can't please everybody, but we will do our best to do so, and through being able to modify after the installation, we usually can make most people happy. Okay, the next slide is maintenance. Tying this back to hiring local. In conjunction with the city administration, we will hire a maintenance contractor to maintain the lights, where now National Grid maintains the lights. We can put performance metrics in place. There will be service level agreements, so there will be requirements for response times for failed lights. This gives you much more control over the way it is now, where you just wait until the light is currently fixed. Through the maintenance, this is also the greatest cost savings to the city. Where now the city is paying around $2.5 to $3 million a year in maintenance for the system. We expect the new maintenance contract to cost below $450,000, and that's based on contracts that Rochester and other large cities upstate have in place. But the big component of the savings is $2 million in annual energy savings from the maintenance as well, with gaining more control over the system. But we will, again, hire local, and we'll put performance measures in place to make sure that the system is fixed and maintained adequately. Okay, next pillar.
When you say hire local, what is on? Go ahead, keep going.
Okay, so this is a transition slide. We're going to focus on the second pillar, which is installing smart city hardware and procuring software to improve and enhance the quality of lives for the city residents. So this is what we're using the $500,000 grant for. We're going to buy the hardware. We're going to work with the city to identify where this hardware will be installed throughout the city, and this will be the largest smart city installation in the Northeast. This is what's going to propel Syracuse to becoming a smart city. So imagine if you're on a bus and the bus is connected to a node, and the node is connected to the traffic lights, so that the buses can get across town much faster. Imagine being able to look at your phone to find out when the next bus is actually coming to your stop. These are the different benefits that these systems provide. There are off-the-shelf applications. It's also an open platform, so the city can add and customize to these to the software that it's used for. Environmental, ice and snow detection, also storm drainage monitoring can be connected to these systems. So there are a variety of different options, and the customization is available too as well. So going to the next slide, this kind of shows what it looks like, and it's hard to tell from the projector, but on the handout you can see these sensors are discrete. Most people will not even know that they exist. They're aesthetically discrete. They connect right on the pole between the head of the light and the arm of the light. It's on top of the light that will have the connected node for the asset management. It's behind the luminaire where the smart city node will be placed. Imagine this node as an iPhone, and you go to the App Store and you can buy a lot of apps off the store, or you can hire a developer to create an app for your specific need. This is the iPhone. Through this grant, we're going to install the hardware. We're going to make sure that there's at least 5 years of software in place, so the system can be used through the various softwares. And I believe, Christy, this is going to be rolled out after the citywide data policy is in place.
Correct.
Okay. So this gives an opportunity for a lot of collaboration. San Diego had an app competition where they allowed the public to create applications. One example was a student created an app that identified optimal locations for planting trees. And that's just one example. We can partnership with the private sector or universities to be able to do a lot of customization with this application. And open platform is the key here. Make sure you're not locked into specific service providers. Okay. And the third pillar, connectivity. This is, again, nobody else is doing this on a large scale across the country. They're deploying pilots right now across the country. Through this project, we're going to attempt to bridge that digital divide, and this is the first step in doing that. We're going to solicit private investment, work closely with the city. There's already an existing fiber ring in development. We're going to leverage the work that is done with that existing fiber ring, try to monetize it to generate revenue for additional investment. But this is what's going to expand broadband into areas where the city needs it right now, and also generate revenue. So on this slide, the connectivity, a slide as I mentioned earlier, the 4G will be ready this fall. We're looking to incorporate small cell towers into streetlights and generate revenue. There are other cities that are generating revenue between $1,200 and $2,000 per pole per year that can be reinvested into other projects in your municipality. 4G is ready and it's here. They install them in approximately 1 in 10 lights. 5G is a couple years away, but the infrastructure will be in place and ready to handle that, and that will be more like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 lights. It's not either or. You can do both, and the providers want to do both. So again, equitable access to cell service, bridging that divide. We're going to start in neighborhoods that need it most and areas that need that service right now. Now with the Wi-Fi, it's not going to be something that is deployed right away. We're going to look at taking the broadband service and maybe offering public Wi-Fi in certain areas. There's also an opportunity to generate revenue through advertisements and subscriptions for public Wi-Fi. It's something that is also very new, but it's the city's intention to roll this out and do it in an equitable way. So that's something that we're going to include in this analysis and deployment. We want to establish proof of concept. This is something we want to roll out. We don't want to just do studies. One other benefit to added broadband density is first responders. So you can give priority to first responders in the case of emergency to have access to that system. Okay. So there is a process on the next slide to purchase your lights. The purchase will have to be approved by the Public Service Commission. It is a ratepayer asset that is being transferred to ownership to the city. So the Power Authority will help the city through that transfer of ownership process and reviewing contract documents. We will provide short-term financing for the purchase of that system, which is approximately $15 million. So NYPA will provide the short-term financing for that. And then upon 100% completion of the project, that's when the bond will be used to repay the project costs. But during the whole project, those project costs are carried. On the next slide is again on construction financing. So the upfront purchase of the system, soft costs, material costs, and labor costs will all be carried by the Power Authority at a variable rate right now, which is currently 2.93%. We estimate an implementation period of 6 months, but it is not until the city is fully satisfied and signs off on the project that the debt is repaid, and that includes commissioning the project. So when the city is satisfied, we close out the project, provide closeout documentation to the city, and then we enter into the repayment. And then finally, on the last side is our estimated timeline right now. So the important milestone that you want to be paying attention to is, first, we'll pass a resolution to enter into the agreement to start the design of the project. During that time, in parallel pass, we will also work on the contract negotiations and the transfer of ownership with Grid. We'll start design, and that is done closely with the city. The day that the city takes transfer of ownership, we want to be able to deploy. So you're maximizing the value of your asset and installing high efficiency LEDs. The day that you take ownership, you're starting to save money because you're no longer paying National Grid to maintain those lights. So there is savings starting at the end of February, as we're projecting right now. As soon as you take ownership, there's savings. But you want to make sure that you're out there because National Grid is no longer going to maintain the system. So the city has to have a plan in place that means we can be ready. So when we create our construction schedule, we want to target areas that might have lights that are underperforming or have failed. So that's something we can do during the construction and rollout of the project. Through the City Touch system, we can notify the public of progress and what lights have been converted, and you can see it in real time on a map of the conversion of the project. But that, making sure that the design is done, the materials are ordered, and the bucket trucks are ready to roll as soon as ownership takes place is critical in the logistics and the timing of a project like this. As to the councilman's point earlier, our projection for the timeline for construction is based on our experience with other projects. We're looking to have approximately 10 crews of 2 men on this project. That will be determined with the city at the time of bidding for the project, for the construction. So that's the timeline, and I do want to wrap and circle back on the 3 pillars of the project. First, you're purchasing an asset you can monetize and leverage and control. You're implementing an energy efficiency project that is cash flow positive, and you're becoming a green city. That's the first pillar of the project. The second is you're installing smart city hardware that is to this scale has not been done in this area, and you'll be a leader in the smart city realm. You'll have better information, and you have that matched to a city data policy that will complement having all of this new data, and you can work with the Power Authority and other investment, public and private, to figure out the best way to use that information to make the user experience and the experience for the residents, the business owners, and the visitors of the city, make it better and improve it. And then the third key pillar to wrap is connectivity, making sure that it's equitable across the city, bridging the digital divide, and that you're using your street lighting system to attract businesses, tech companies, other businesses that are looking for these types of systems in their decision-making process and attracting other new investments into the city of Syracuse. So that's our presentation. I'd like to open up to questions.
Okay, Councilor Carney, then Councilor Red.
Yeah. So my first go around. Yeah. All right. So I have 2 questions. One is back to with the maintenance. I understand that we're going to have outside. We're going to bid it out and get someone to come do this work. But for the actual dimming of lights and the other, is there going to be some sort of command center where everything is going to be viewed from and be able to dim and adjust? And if so, is that going to be controlled by the DPW, or is the maintenance staff going to actually be doing that work as well for the city?
So I will let Jesse talk about perhaps how other cities have done it. I think what we've talked about here is that we will have maintenance that is responsible for controlling those the dimming, those kinds of things on a regular basis. However, we'll still have local control of that here as well. A part of the moving forward with this would be having a dedicated person within DPW and having financing for a dedicated person within DPW who's responsible both for maintaining the maintenance contract and ensuring that we are hitting service level agreements and the kinds of things we put in place around it, but also in the event that we do need something in an emergency, or I think it was on slide 7, you can sort of see there is this kind of command center. The software will give us the ability to view the assets on large screens, to be able to deploy DPW folks as we need if something does come up, and there will be responsible staff in-house to at least one responsible staff member to make sure that that's happening.
Okay.
So I just want to touch on the dimming part. So the way that the street lighting tower for National Grid right now currently exists is that the city is paying, and this is not unique to Syracuse, across service territory wide, is that you're paying for the energy consumption of the rated wattage of the fixture. So when you dim, you're not actually receiving cost savings. The street lights are not metered. They're billed on an assumed number of burn hours every year. Right now, in the Orange in Rockland rate case that's currently pending with the DPS staff right now, this week we're hoping they approve a pilot project where we can meter these nodes and we can verify the wattage that they're dimming, so that we can incorporate dimming tariffs into the next National Grid rate case. So, for example, between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m., you can dim those lights down 30 to 50% because there's less traffic on the road. Still providing a safe and adequate amount of light, but you can still dim them down. You should be able to receive cost savings on your bill for that. So NYPA, with the Public Service Commission and NYSERDA and other state partners and local government partners, will work on the next National Grid rate case to make sure there's a dimming tariff in place, so you're paying for what you're actually using.
Okay.
That would be, by the way, additional to the savings that we show in this.
Okay. The other is on page 13 or slide 13 with the smart city sensors. There's a color camera. There's microphones. There's a back camera bay. There's there's another set of 2 cameras. What are those for, and who has access to those?
So for the most part, those would augment existing public safety infrastructure that we have here. When we talk about the smart city use case, it would be an augment to that. It would be limited to public safety uses at this point in time.
Okay. So it would be replacing or working along with cops' cameras?
Working along with, not replacing.
Okay. And would every street light would have those features on it?
Yes, that is the standard set of features that will come with them. As we talked about, the city, before we move forward with any of this, will have a very concrete data policy in place that we'll be sharing and making publicly available for comment. That will make it clear that the collection of any data is very well protected and restricted based on things like public safety needs.
Okay.
First, I want to say thank you to Christy, because the challenge of this administration was to find cost savings and revenue generating opportunities, and this is one, and it looks great, and it's green, and I like it, and I want it to work. I have a couple of simple questions. When you talk about dimming an area, dimming an entire neighborhood, it gives me the impression that they're all sort of linked together. If one bulb goes out, do we lose multiple lights, or is
That's a good question.
Are they Christmas lights?
So the lights are able to be controlled on an individual basis and dimmed on an individual basis. I'll give you an example. So one of the downstate large city installations that we're working on right now, the dispatch for law enforcement has control over the lights. So they'll increase the light levels if they get a call in a particular neighborhood, and then they will also turn off the lights if there's a police raid on a building to provide cover. So that's one example. Public Works, this is great for them. If there's snow removal at nighttime, they want to raise the light levels to be able to see objects at dark times. This is a great tool for that. Scheduling with businesses, so a lot of, like, down where our office is, when in White Plains, so the law enforcement down there used to have 4 cops working the beat at nighttime when the bars closed. They added these types of sensors and cameras. They now only need 2 at nighttime, so there's a revenue or cost savings there on city staff as well.
And there's no way in this technology to have some sort of an alert that the light is out?
That is exactly what it does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I was under the impression we still had to rely on neighbors calling us.
No, so it'll send a notification to a list of people that you request. So there are different access levels. There's just viewing only access, and then there's...
It's an email notification, right? So the minute the light goes out, it's an instantaneous notification.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably hear from constituents first.
They'll call me anyway. My other question is regarding the hardware that we're installing. Has it been tested and tried and true in the sort of climates that we live in Syracuse and the sort of snow?
Yes, absolutely. So it's been done at a small scale in pockets. It has not been done at a large scale. So it's not testing and deploying. I mean, we're deploying an actual smart cities project here. This is not R&D. We're not using Syracuse as a guinea pig, but you will be the largest smart city deployment with this type of technology.
And the LED lights aren't as hot as other lights.
That's correct.
So they won't necessarily melt the snow off the top of the lights like we see happen now. So that's not going to be a problem with.
So they do generate some heat. And the way that the street lights are designed is that there are like fins inside the lights where the snow can melt right through or fall right through. So it's not just a flat top surface. There's a bit of a scale that's like not mesh, but there's crossbars that allow the snow to fall through.
So there's infrastructure in place to work with the snow?
Yes, absolutely.
A couple other questions. Regarding the smart city deployment, the $500,000 grant is going to cover the install of the additional sensors. So I'm wondering if this project is street lights, LED lights and poles, but is the other additional sensor ready fixtures like snow and ice cameras and all of that, is that a la carte? Is that something we come back and install later, or does that all go in as part of this project?
It's all included in this project. All of these sensors, the sensor ready fixtures, the nodes, the luminaires, it's all included in this deployment. Okay,
and the snow and ice detection, has that been used before in other cities? I'm wondering why we just never had that before.
So there are systems out there, but never from the street light. So what this is there. So your traditional street light, it's hard to see on this picture, but on the top you have the what's called a NEMA socket for the connected node that will communicate and control the light. On the back of the luminaire, we'll have this smart city node with these additional sensors. On the bottom of the fixture, this is brand new. Philips released this there's a big conference called Light Fair 3 months ago, and there's an additional port located on the bottom of the street light that provides access for another sensor that can be something like snow and ice detection. And this is all state of the art, where you're leveraging the communication device in a roadway light to communicate through a cell network information about snow and ice detection. The way that they work now is they're usually installed in the roadway, and they're very expensive, and they connect to a radio frequency mesh network, and that has an ongoing subscription cost. It becomes very expensive, and the installation is quite complicated. This is a very seamless installation. It just plugs in to the existing fixture, and we're going to install these fixtures in certain areas of the city, working closely with DPW. Areas like hills where ice is a major problem, or areas that are prone to generating lots of ice.
All of this technology won't be on every pole. It'll just be in identified areas.
Exactly.
The $450,000 annual service contract is for the just for the hardware, and the software is separate. That's a 10-year service contract.
No, so the $450,000 is to maintain the roadway lights and the poles and the arms. The software will be included in that $500,000. So the $450,000 is to maintain the system. So a street light gets knocked down through a traffic accident, or a truck hits a light, we have to go back and put the arm and put the light back up. A very rare occurrence. Just to qualify that, it's industry average is about 3% of roadway lights every year go out. Very low, very, very low with LEDs. But the reoccurring subscription cost is included in our grant, and there will be at no expense to the city.
So in the 10-year software contract, any updates and upgrades, which will probably happen every 6 months,
all included.
Are those included?
All 100% included.
We won't be seeing any additional
it's a great question.
costs or anything like that?
No additional cost.
Okay, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo Councilor Boyle's sentiment. This all sounds really exciting, and it's great to see this movement answering a lot of questions about what we can do to work more efficiently, and I think it's all great. When you talk about the $3 million, so I heard earlier that it would be a $20 million over 20-year savings, but you said here conservatively $3 million a year. What's the discrepancy between those two, and could you go into like a breakdown of what a $3 million conservative savings would be, in addition to? I mean, I'm obviously seeing that the LED lighting costs us less, but that's a distinction between 1 and 3. So I was just curious what the breakdown of a $3 million conservative estimate would look like.
Yep. So currently you're paying National Grid for the energy that the street lighting system uses, and you're paying them to go out and maintain and repair the system over a very long depreciated timeline. Depending on the asset, could be 30 to 50 years on different equipment. The savings of the $3 million is, and this is a very conservative cost estimate, is you're saving approximately $1 million on the energy component of it, and a little bit over $2 million on the maintenance. That $2 million does it includes the additional cost of the $450,000 to maintain the ongoing system. The difference in the $1 million to the $3 million is the repayment of the actual bond.
So we'll be, as you guys know, bonding for this project. We will remain cash flow positive over the life of that bond, meaning that we will not be paying out as much to pay down the bond as we are currently paying. Once we pay down that bond, then additional revenue, of course, comes.
Okay. And I guess my other question was, you mentioned a 10-year warranty and liability. Am I correct in understanding that? So these the node system doesn't work. NYPA is the responsibility liable, and you guys would give us a 10-year warranty. Is that correct?
So it's the warranty. The way the warranty works is for the first year, NYPA warranties the labor. So if a luminaire goes out and during the first year, we'll come out, replace it, no cost to the city. The 10-year warranty is for the equipment through the manufacturer, whether it's Philips or GE, whoever that service provider is for that piece of equipment. So the city would take the equipment through the maintenance contractor, remove it, replace it, and they would return the failed equipment to the manufacturer, and that's a manufacturer's warranty. And also the service for the Smart City Touch node is also a 10-year warranty on the hardware and the software.
Great. You mentioned a reduction in pole cost. It's gone down from 300 to around 80 now. I was just curious what caused that.
Yep. So that example was I was referencing the cost of a fixture head, so a luminaire. The largest portion of the cost for LEDs, and this is true for most electronics, is R&D. So the research and development costs have dropped dramatically, and these are now established fixtures. So they were able to, and also that it also has a lot to do with the buying power and the quantity of lights that we're installing across the state as well.
Okay, I'll try not to be greedy with my time. Last one, the incentives you were talking about. What does that look like?
Yep. So that's a great question. Incentives, the way that the National Grid incentive currently works is it is based on a prescriptive dollar amount per fixture replaced, and that dollar amount varies between $15 and $50 per light, depending on the wattage reduction. So if you have a 400 watt and you go to a 100 watt, you get a greater incentive than if you went from 50 to 25. This helps them with their energy efficiency goals. These are systems benefit charge funded grants and rebates. So it's actually money that the city is paid into the systems benefit charge that they're being reimbursed through this energy efficiency program. And that's going to be determined at the point of design. So if the city wants to maybe add more light, the rebate will be less. But if you want to be aggressive with your energy efficiency and install like to hit those design markings to an appropriate light level without overlighting, you'll get more of a rebate, and that'll be determined during design.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming, and I want to echo the same thing that the councilors have said. I would ask Commissioner Del Vecchio to come up for one of these questions, and I'll ask the other ones before. The software licensing costs. Now my understanding is when we get software licenses, we have to do it for each item that has it, like a computer, if it has that. So would we have to do this by purchase for 17,500 lights each time? Do we?
No. So the way that the software works is these nodes, these smart city nodes, will install approximately 50 of them for a term. And that term could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, but there will be multiple software applications using the same system. Like on your iPhone, you'll have a Maps app, you'll have a dining app, or a hotel app. So you're able to add multiple applications, like on an iPhone, to the same system. So you're not locked in for a long period of time. Now, you don't want to have multiple traffic apps, right? So we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to do a lot of testing and vetting. We're going to go through our due diligence with the procurement process to make sure we're selecting the best value for the city with those software providers. And then also the customization after.
So that's no?
So that's a no.
That's a no?
There are software terms,
Okay.
but it's not.
How many licenses would you have to buy approximately?
You would buy them for the system, but it's not for 17,000 of them. There will be approximately 50 control nodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Christy, I think we had when we discussed this a couple months ago, you had a nice breakdown with costs and everything that will answer some of the other questions. Do you still have that, and can you get that for the counselors if
I can
if you
provide
do?
it for the counselors.
Okay,
yes.
please. And let's see. You said a 6-month kickoff, which is wonderful. What isn't wonderful is completing in February. If in fact that's just my opinion, that it probably would be. You said 6 months during good weather.
So the project kickoff would start pretty quickly, but the construction would not start until February. So so the construction would go through the spring and throughout and wrap up in the summertime.
It wouldn't start like immediately, and then
No.
which then I guess answers my next one, which because I was thinking that the construction would begin immediately and 6 months down the line in February be done, which I was going to question Christie and say, is that give us enough time to get RFPs and everything out for crews and that to be able to contract to do this, which you spoke of having to be done prior to. So
Yeah, and these guys will be managing that full process. So that time period that you're talking about is when they will be working on the RFP components leading
6
up to
months from February then.
For construction. So from approval to February, we'll finish the design, the bidding, the procurement, and the construction schedule.
And I do want to comment that I think one of the major benefits to us is that this doesn't displace the other items that we are planning to do in the capital plan or that DPW is planning to accomplish this year. These guys will take the heavy burden of making sure that this component gets done so that we can continue to do work as usual.
Okay, and last day, Commissioner, can you give us a rundown here on the debt service, how this is going to affect that? And
well, the total cost not to exceed $38 million. It's within the margin for the city to borrow. Will not have an impact. We have margin to borrow, so it will not be an impact. I think we're looking at least a 15-year amortization, according to what we're anticipating. So that's consistent. That'll be good if we can do that. So overall, I mean, it's within the ability of the city to borrow this is there. I think that's.
And how does it affect, will that affect the rating? Will that change our ratings so it will cost us in some other direction? Or?
Well, it's difficult to say what the rating agencies would do. We did meet with them a few months ago. They're aware of this. They did not express a concern that they would reduce our rating. However, again, come the spring of next year, when we go to issue bonds, there's many factors that come into play on their determination to the rating. So I can't say for certain it would reduce it or improve it. I just can't speak for them.
Okay, but the ability to borrow it is there, and
yes, we have the ability to borrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, those are my questions.
Sure.
My one quick comment is the technology to be able to dim certain lights is obviously great, but we should begin to think about how, like, a policy that we could articulate to constituents, just because there's not going to be consensus on even one street about that. So
Yeah.
being able to kind of explain to people how to do that would be something to think about.
I serve my compliment sandwiches on very thin bread, so this is a nice job. I'm excited. And I would love to see a cash flow analysis, so over the life of this, however long it is, 15 years, 30 years, whatever we're doing, when is the money in, when is the money out, So instead of just saying we're cash flow positive the whole time, I can see that we're cash flow positive the whole time, and we can have like an internal rate of return on what we expect and what the add-on variables would be, how that internal rate of return might increase depending on the options that we exercise. I would also like to know exactly what we're buying and a breakdown of the cost, because in the bond authorization we're going up for 38 million, and here you're talking about this 15 million startup initial put out. So like I'm trying to understand all of that, what exactly we buy. There is this image on the page that shows the light. I understand there's 17,500 whatever lumineers. So that's probably how many lights we're buying, how many arms are we buying, how many poles are we buying. Can we have that itemized so that we know? And how that corresponds to like lifespans of those assets, so how quickly we have to replace them. I'd like that incorporated into that cash flow analysis. And you're describing like we're installing an iPhone right above the light. My iPhone self-destructs like every 3 years. So like what's the self-destruction timeline for that asset, and what's the like ongoing replacement, and is that built into our cash flow? Otherwise, I think this is great and you're doing great work, and I know it's all happening very quickly, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. We'll follow up with additional information on the numbers there.
Most of my questions were already answered due to your thorough explanation, and I think you just asked my last question about in regards to the iPhone. But what's the lifespan for each? Like each structure, what's the lifespan?
So the life expectancy for the base of the fixture is about 60 years.
60?
Yeah, for
Okay.
the pole, it's about 40 to 50 years. For an arm, it's about 40 years. For the fixture head itself, it's 100,000 hours, and at approximately 4,000 burn hours a year, it's approximately 25 years for the life of the LED. So this is truly a capital project, a long-term project. These are long-term assets, and then the sensors are rated for 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one quick question. In the number, the 17.5, the city already owns some of these lights and the heads. So is that included in the number? Did you take the city-owned lights out?
So the city-owned lights are not included. These are the lights that you're purchasing. The
Okay.
17,000.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you,
Okay.
councilors.
Can I throw out one more? This is kind of crazy, but is motion sensor ever a concept?
It is. So these sensors are able to include motion sensors. There is a little bit of liability concern when you're dimming roadway luminaires, so we want to just be very sensitive to that. But for parks, sidewalk lighting, those types of applications, motion sensors when you're walking down the street and that roadway lights up to provide security and safety is absolutely something that we can include in those particular areas like parks and on sidewalks.
Cool.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
councilors.
Disco lights. Can we do the Michael Jackson Beat It video thing?